the most success he's had is when he had Steve Nash really handling the ball in Phoenix and, running just a lot of ball dominant stuff. And then, of course, when he has James Harden being ball dominant. But Mike's a good offensive coach. I think you've got to get a little more movement, Zeke. You got to pop the ball a little bit more. I just don't think that, and I think both Westbrook can run. He can push the ball. James pushes the ball, but you got to get out and run with the guy. If you don't have the ball, you got to get out on the wing. And neither Westbrook or Hart have been good runners for others. When you have the ball, they're not running hard for you to get out ahead. I think they've got to do more of that. I think they've got to change some. But I'm with you, Zeke. They both really are looking at it like, man, this might be our last and our best chance of really winning something special together and everybody wrong and proving. But I do think a bit of a change. I just don't think you have to walk it up. Look, when you walk it up, James Harden is fine playing that style. Zeke, I think Russell Westbrook is guardable in a up and down transition game, and they've got to get more. That means James has got to throw the ball ahead, and you got to do a lot of little things now if you really want to win with these two guys playing together. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it can work.
Stick with us. More on the latest mega deal involving the Thunder when we come back, and is OKC even where Chris Paul winds up? Much more coming up on Game Time.
Chili's 3 for $10 makes dinner so easy. Everyone in your family is only $10.
In his career, Chris Paul is being traded, this time back to OKC, where he spent his first 2 seasons with the Hornets after the franchise was displaced by Hurricane Katrina. At 34, after missing 48 regular season games the past 2 seasons and owed more than $124 million over the next 3 seasons, CP wasn't an easy trade chip to move, but moved he was. And obviously it is the buzz around the league after the news came out on Wednesday night. Trae Young among the NBA players tweeting, reacting. This league indeed, Brad Beal. Jamal Crawford, might be the craziest NBA summer. He's still looking for a job.
Crossover.
And a welcome from J.J. Watt of the Houston Texans for Russell Westbrook, who is leaving the only franchise he's ever known after 11 seasons in OKC. Eric Horn covers the Thunder for the Oklahoman. He joins us now from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, Eric, I want to get into the timeline, into the seeds of this trade. How soon after the Paul George deal went down did the Thunder start considering trading Russell Westbrook?
That's the pivot. Once that happens, you're in a full rebuild, and you have to start thinking about that. So it was something that was pretty soon after. The Thunder's gone at this for 3 years now with those main characters, or at least Westbrook as the main character, and they've gotten to the first round and out every single season. So, there was some stagnation there, kind of some need of a reboot. And once Paul George came to them with a trade request, to me, that was kind of a blessing in disguise for this Thunder team, because they were going to run this thing back again and change the parts around Westbrook and George, but I don't know how much better this team would have been.
So Chris Paul is now back in Oklahoma City, where he spent his first 2 seasons in the NBA when the Hornets were displaced by Hurricane Katrina. At least for the moment, there's already a thought out there and some reporting out there that he might get moved before the season begins. From where you sit, what is the likelihood that Chris Paul winds up even in camp with the Thunder?
I think it depends on what the Thunder can get done. First of all, they need to sit down with Chris Paul's agent and see, what's going to be the next step for him and how he feels about playing for this team. This team is not far from their goal of being under the luxury tax, even with Chris Paul. So that's one of the goals that the Thunder's accomplished while getting multiple picks for Paul George, and Jeremy Grant. They got a ton of first-round picks going forward. So if the Thunder keeps him, it makes this team a team that can, it isn't as good as when they had Paul George and Russell Westbrook, but it's still a team that's probably going to be able to maintain some kind of competitiveness with a swap for Westbrook and Chris Paul. But the likelihood he gets moved, I think that's to be decided. It depends on his interest in going to a place like Miami. I talk about Chris Paul. And it depends on the Thunder's interest in having him around when they have a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who needs to probably play and start as he did his first year in the league.
Absolutely. You know, we saw the bitterness of Oklahoma City fans when Kevin Durant returned to town. The situation is different, obviously, because Durant left, whereas Russell Westbrook is being traded now. What has his relationship with Oklahoma City been since he arrived as a rookie?
It's been interesting. I think that when Kevin Durant was here, Westbrook was sort of looked at times as the fall guy. Durant was looked at as the guy who could do no wrong at times. And, Westbrook comes into the league at 19 years old, playing the toughest position it is to play in the league. He comes in raw from UCLA. And, it's tough on a young guy to kind of take the criticism that he had, considering he was playing next to an otherworldly talent in Kevin Durant, who's hyper-efficient to this day. Efficiency was never Russell Westbrook's game. But the strides that Westbrook has made in the last 11 years cannot go unstated. The guy's a Hall of Fame player. He propped up this franchise when Kevin Durant left. If not for him, there's no telling where the franchise is now and if they can make these moves. So I think that the thought about Russell Westbrook has shifted since he came to Oklahoma City. He started here as a guy that was a second banana, quote unquote, and now he's the greatest player in franchise history because he stuck with the franchise when they lost their supposed top gun. And he endeared himself to a community and a state and the league, frankly, for being one of those guys who didn't bounce, who didn't break, when things got difficult.
Now, I mentioned off the top you're coming to us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You're actually at a Russell Westbrook event tonight. What has the vibe in the building been like as word of this trade gets around?
Yeah, a lot of people got to this event, and it's a charity event that Russell Westbrook does. This comedy show with one of his friends from when he was in middle school and high school. He does this every year. And that's another thing that goes overlooked is Russell Westbrook's work in the communities he's done here in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma since he moved here. But it was an awkward vibe. Westbrook is here. He didn't speak to the media, but he sat down front and center, for this comedy show. He got on stage. He didn't address any of the trade stuff, but he talked about the show. He talked about the work that he's doing with his group, the comedy group that's here, and some of the charity work he's doing. So it's definitely been awkward. Some of the comics have just openly admitted it, like, this is awkward. The energy in here is awkward and stuff like that. But it just kind of, people are laughing. People are having a good time. It's a little bittersweet. You've got a lot of kids in Westbrook jerseys. You've got kids outside of the event center here that didn't have tickets. It was a sold-out event even before the trade happened. And then the trade was announced just minutes before this event started. So it made for a weird scene, but it kind of made for a fitting send-off for a guy that people have come to love so much in this city and in this state.
Interesting night and the start of an interesting new chapter for Russell Westbrook as he heads out of town. Eric Horn with us from the Oklahoma, and appreciate the time as always.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt has been active on Twitter when it comes to the Thunder recently. He tweeted, in the days ahead, there will be much more to say about what Russell Westbrook has meant to OKC. I can't even begin to process it all now. But for tonight, holy cow, you can't make this stuff up. We traded our greatest love for our first love. Harkening back to CP3 playing at OKC. And now a very, very different looking roster than the one that bowed out against the Portland Trailblazers in the postseason. And as Eric mentioned, that's the third straight first-round exit. If Chirs Paul is on this roster when the camp begins, what kind of a team is this?
Strange.
Yeah.
It's a strange team. I don't anticipate seeing that team really on the court together. I'm not sure that Chris will ever play a game there.
Right.
I'm not sure that Danilo will play a game there. I think that they may find a way for him to get to another place. But very, very different. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like we said, he needs to play, needs to start like he did last year in Los Angeles. So it's going to be different. But I'm anxious to see. Sam Presti's one of the best GMs in this league, well regarded. He drafts well. I'm anxious to see what his plan is, because he has one.
I think the sense is that Chris Paul will probably be moved before the season begins. But again, this is not an easy contract to move, and there are only so many teams that can make this happen. In the meantime, Sam Presti just keeps racking up every available first-round pick. Look at that list of picks they have in the coming years. That's over the next 7 drafts. Some of those are swaps, so they're not necessarily picks that they get. It's the option to swap with Houston or with the LA Clippers. And some of those picks are Miami picks, ironically enough, because that's apparently one of the possible destinations for Chris Paul. But, you know, these rebuilds sound great and the picks sound great, but you have to nail some of these to make it work. And you're talking about out through the 2026 draft. This could be a long-term process.
Yeah, we know Sam does well. He drafted KD, he drafted Russ, he drafted James. So we know he knows what he's doing there. But, man, it's going to be really tough. It's even tougher now to build through the draft with the guys getting younger and younger and younger all the time. You need some more development. So I imagine he's going to turn some of these picks into veteran players. Free agents and build that way.
And in terms of a macro view, this is just the latest seismic shift in the West, where Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, Paul George, Mike Conley, and D'Angelo Russell